What's up, fam? Top of the morning, top of the evening, top of the noonday to you, whichever one this video finds you in. Finally found a new angle for this phone. I don't. Yes, I'm using my phone. Um, anyway, got my Pete's coffee. You Bay Area folks, you know what time it is. Um, Check it. Today, we've been doing this all this month of January. We've been talking about the standard Take the A train, and I want to say something about that. First, if you're new to the channel, man, go and hit that subscribe button. You know you want to. Subscribe, bell notification. You know what time it is. Check it out. I want you to know that you don't have to be like a jazz fan to get into this. I like jazz, but I'm not like a jazz dude. That's not like the thing that really does it for me. I love jazz, but I'm a blue collar bass player. I'm a working bassist. So and what that means is I do a whole lot of different types of gigs, not just the types of gigs that all play all the music that I just love. You know what I mean? I'm not playing funk all night. Every gig I play, especially if it's a wedding or something like that, every one of them has some sort of a jazz component to it. You know what I mean? There's going to be a cocktail hour, and sometimes it's just bass and some other instrument. I've been in that situation too. So I will say that no other genre of music has opened up my understanding of the bass neck, and music in general, as jazz, and being able to create walking bass lines and not get that nervous feeling when you're called on to make a walking bass line. So what I think would be a good thing to do today, instead of giving you a new pattern, like new patterns, is to really talk about the form of this tune. So now I've added a PDF to this video, so you're going to download that and you can follow along with me. And we're going to talk about the ingredients of this particular tune. I also want to say that, hang on one second. Oh, there it is. I went to college like late in life. I started school when I was in my mid-30s, and that was a trip for me because there was a lot of deficiencies and holes in my playing, and part of that was, quite honestly, playing walking bass lines. And up until that point, I had been gigging and touring and playing with a bunch of people and stuff. But man, there were some major gaps in my playing, and this was one of them. So I want to show you how I started to be able to look at charts and say, this is what's going on, and dissect it from there. So if you've been watching this month, we're pretty much all the way through this tune. Okay, so now it's just like review time. So we're in the key of C. So what you want to know is, what does the key of C look like? And you don't necessarily need to be able to, fly around the neck playing licks and runs in the key of C. At the very least, what you need to know is there's a shape for C. Now, in that position, I can, I just started at the root and I went down to the root. Now I'm going to go on a 4-string bass. All of those notes are in the key of C. Okay, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, down to B, A, G, F, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's one position. You can also know the key of C. So we addressed all of the notes in the key of C in those two positions. Now look, I'm not saying that that's all you need to know. I'm saying that at the very least, you got to be able to see that box. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to know what pond you're fishing in order to get, here's going to be my attempt at a fishing analogy. If you want trout, you got to go to the pond where the trout are. If you want catfish, you got to go to one of you fishing folks is going to say, man, you don't do fishing analogies. But anyway, you need to know that. Also, you need to know what the arpeggio shapes are. So there's 4 main types of chords that you're gonna encounter. So there's the C major triad. Here's the C major 7 shape. If I want to extend that and go above or below it, here's C. Or really, okay? And that's a major 7 shape, right? Starting with the 3rd finger here. Here it is here. Now the thing about the, that's one of 3 fingering shapes that you need to have for a major 7 arpeggio. Okay, let me show you another one. Another one would be starting from the 1st finger. Another one would be starting from the pinky. But for right now, I want you to concentrate on this one. Okay? Understand that's a movable shape. So wherever I move that shape, that's going to be the shape of a major 7. So I think you get my point. If you don't, please engage with me. Leave me a comment, ask me questions, and I will talk about it. And look, this information is all over the web, so this is just kind of my spin on explaining it, the way that I like to explain it. So that's your major 7. Then there's your dominant 7. The only thing that separates these 2 shapes is the 7th. So there's a root, a major 3rd, a perfect 5th, and a major 7 away from this root. Okay, that's your major 7 shape. Now if I want to go dominant 7 shape, I just flat that 7. That's also going to be movable. You dig what I'm saying? So the first 2 measures of Take the A Train, 2 measures of C major 7, 2 measures of D dominant 7. Now, technically D7 is not in the key of C. That note is what we call, that chord is behaving as a secondary dominant, the 5 of 5. And what I mean by that is the 5 chord in the key of C is G. All right? But the dominant chord that leads to G is D7. So let's just say if we took just the natural notes, the D in the key of C, C major would be D minor 7. But now we've got, the composer has changed this to a D7, so now we've got a D major 3rd, perfect 5th, and a flat 7. Or like the shape we just talked about. I don't know why I'm doing my head like that. It just felt like the right thing to do. Okay? So, one of the first 2 measure patterns that we talked about would look like this. Okay? That's for that C major 7. And I know I didn't talk about the other 4 chord types, but the other couple of chord types, but right now I just want to look at these patterns and how we can plug them in to Take the A Train. Okay, because that's really the goal of what we're doing month to month, is getting patterns. I don't suggest that you use any YouTube video as the be all and end all of your learning. You know what I mean? It's like a quick reference. You know what I'm saying? So let's go on. So we've got these 2 bars. That pattern is going to work anytime you have a major 3rd, a chord that has a major 3rd. Both the major 7 and the dominant 7 both have a major 3rd. So now the next two measures, we've got a D minor 7 to G7. That's our 2-5. Anytime you see a minor 7 chord followed by a dominant 7 chord, meaning just the G and the 7 or whatever the note letter is, and a 7 behind it, that's your dominant 7. Okay? So what happened for me, what really opened that up for me is I would see that passage as one chunk of something. Okay? And I look at it as a passage that's kind of leading us into something else. Okay, so for that, I added a pattern that kind of addresses both of those chords, and the pattern that I used was so I went the root of D, the second of D, the major second, minor third, a chromatic note that gives us some tension to go into the root of G, and then I walk down G, the flat 7, 6, the 5, and then the next chord is going to be C. So let's play up to that point. All right, so we're breaking the whole tune down in a little bitty bite-sized chunk. So next two bars, we've got C, A7, D minor 7, G7. So those are two chords in each one of those bars. So the way that the pattern that I used for that was the root, a chromatic note leading into the next chord, a chromatic note leading into the next chord, chromatic note leading into the next chord. Stop that. So let me do that again. So I went I used a chromatic note below each one of my targets. Okay, I like to think about walking bass lines as like connecting the dots. You know what I'm saying? Remember when you were a kid and you did those, or maybe you're doing it now, doing those little connect the dot pictures? That's really what it is. So if you look at this C as a dot, and you look at this A as a dot, the D is a dot, the G is a dot, and the C is a dot, because that's where we're going. We're going back to the top. Okay, that's an 8 measure section. So once we get that G7, we're going back to the top. Okay, and we're going to plug in the same patterns. Okay, and as you get more patterns under your belt, you'll begin to improvise and mix and match them, as necessary to give more interest. You're not going to play the but as an academic exercise, you want to stick to the same pattern, you dig? So you can get that under your fingers. And when you see these chords, cause you're going to see this in other songs, right? But when you see them, you can address them. So having said all that, I'm going to play through the first 8 bars of Take the A Train. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and... Okay, I want to show you something else on that last 2 bars. You can also use chromatic notes from above each one of those targets. Okay, and that's going to sound a little bit different. So watch this. If I go C, chromatic, A, here's some new information for you. You could turn that whole thing into an exercise. You can pick start from any note. Let's say I start from G right here. I'm going 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Now I know, I don't know about you, but for my ears, since I switch keys, It may sound a little different, but check this out. Here's G. So I know that I know that it switched because we switched keys, and so it might have sounded a little bit weird to you. But let's go back to C, so I don't trip your ears up. So 1 6 2 5 1 6 2 5 1. You're gonna hear that all the time. 1 6 2 5 1. Now I want to add chromatic notes from above. 1 6 2 5 1 2 6 2 5 1. So what I did there is I see C here. I know that's a 6. I know that's A, right? So I'll do that. I'll find another pattern. 1 6 2 5 1. So that's the first A section, okay? The A section comes around again, but at the second ending, we've got two measures, all right? And instead of playing C, A, D, G, we're just playing a measure of C. Then we're going to play a 2-5. Anytime you hear that terminology, 2-5, you're going from the second chord to the fifth chord down to whatever that root is. So we've got a 2-5 in the key of F. So G minor 7, C7. And all we're going to do is we're going to use a one measure pattern to go into G. So C, and then we'll use that same concept when we have two chords in one bar. We'll go G, chromatic note, C, chromatic note, to F. Okay, so on this 4-bar pattern, this 4 bars of F, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna plug in the 2 measure pattern that we already looked at. But I'm gonna keep going up. Okay, I'm gonna keep going up so that that the line has some movement and some momentum, and it feels like it's traveling upwards. It's walking. It feels like it's moving, right? So peep this. So there's our 2 measure walking pattern that we've already done. Then we're gonna go to D7. So let's just look at that 4 bars of F. So 1 3 4 sharp 4 5 6 flat 7, which is 7 chromatic. So this note is not in the scale, right? Not in the key of F. Is not a part of the F major 7 chord, so it's a chromatic note. So there's our major 7. 1 3 4 sharp 4 5 4 3 1. So we really just connected those two measure walking patterns. So now we're going to go to D7. Sorry. All patterns we've seen before. The next 2 bars is D minor 7 to G7. We've already seen that. So we're going to plug in the same pattern. And go into into, you know what I'm saying? And then we're into the next A section, which is exactly the same as the first A section. So that's the whole tune, right? And I don't know about you, but at one time that would have just blown my mind to try to figure out what's going on here. So again, I know this is YouTube. I know it's quick, but please, I'm super accessible. If you've got questions, I will try to give you answers. I think I have answers. Some stuff you may ask me, I may not have answers. But for this, I'm pretty sure I have some answers for you. So, let me talk about going into that D7 real quick, and I hope that you have the PDF in front of you so that this isn't just like some nebulous thing. All right, so. So I added a chromatic note in there to give it just a little bit more interest. Let me loop this. I'll loop this B section real quick. Going back to F. So you can see how adding that chromatic note, it didn't drastically change the line, but it made it sound just a little bit more interesting. So there's that, and then we went into our 2/5 pattern. I didn't add the chromatic note the first time I did that time. So let me play the whole thing. I'm gonna play the whole thing, and you can just follow along and just, you know what I mean, just see what I'm doing and listen to how you hear the changes. Even if there were no chords at all, you would hear the changes. Okay, that is what you should be looking to accomplish with a walking bass line, is that the listener should be able to hear the changes. They should be able to hear the tune. They should, if the listener is familiar with the melody, they should be able to hear the melody in their mind while you're playing that bass line. Okay, because that's what our job is as bass players. We're the link between the rhythm and the harmony. Now I'm going to play the whole thing with this iReal Pro play along, and so that you can hear the changes. I know this video is a bit longer than usual, but I kind of want to round it out. I know we've got one more week of the month left, so maybe next week we'll talk about, I think we've got one more Wednesday left, so we'll talk about some other patterns. But this is kind of a culmination of what I've done already this month. And like I said, it's also kind of selfish for me because it gives me an excuse to shed on standards when I don't need to. You know what I mean? So here's the whole thing. Chromatic note. did something different there, a dominant approach. C, G to C. Here's our A section again coming up now. 2 bars of C, 2 bars of D7, D minor 7 to G7. Okay, that last 4 measures of in the very last bar, you've got a D minor 7 to G7, and really that 2-5 acts as a, like I said, I always think of it as a device to move us from one place to another. So that D minor 7 to G7 is moving us back into that C. Remember, anytime you see a minor 7 followed by a dominant 7, it's taking us to the root of the parent key. In this case, C. You'll see 2-5 in gospel music a lot. You'll hear when you hear a modulation happen, it's typically preceded by a 2-5 that seems to come out of nowhere. But it's just that little bit of momentum that gives us a different feeling. So, and moves us into the next thing. So, in its entirety, that is Take the A Train. I highly suggest, if you haven't already, get that iReal Pro. That's the best thing since sliced bread, man. I mean, people that are shedding and practicing and just getting into stuff now, the sounds are a little, whatever, but it's a practice tool. It's a great practice tool. So anyway, if you haven't already, go over to TED Talks Bass. I'm still building that. Slowly but surely, because I'm passionate about it. I'm going to keep building it. I've been discouraged in the past, but keep going to build that site. And it's free. So all I need is your email address when you go over there. All right. If you have any questions, once again, leave them in the comments. Email me. I will give you my phone number, but I don't want everybody calling me. I'm just that open. But, definitely hit me on email. Okay. Y'all have a great one. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace. 2 fingers.